Hello again, and welcome back to Mark's RC. Okay, some of you out there are probably familiar with what this is. This is the Fayee FY003a, I think. This is basically their answer to the Defender D90. It comes with nice clear plastic windows from the factory. It's got fold-up mirrors. The hood opens, which would reveal where the actual battery compartment and everything is. It comes with just LEDs in the front and the light buckets, but they are capable of being modded to add lights both in the front and in the rear. Big difference is that this is probably about a ½ an inch narrower and probably about an inch longer overall compared to the MN99S. You notice right at the very start of the video, I pulled that body off of this chassis. What is it? This is the RGT 116, which comes with this thing sitting on top of it, which is a Lexan body, kind of modeled after a D90, just truck style. Has spare tire mounted on the back, roll cage, roof rack, snorkel, folding mirrors on the side, and of course it has the full light bucket kit on the front, and it also has tail lights in the rear. Kind of my whole idea was from the very beginning was that I would like to mount this body on this chassis. As you can see, the front wheels are probably going to sit pretty well with everything. I think it should work. But what I'm going to need to do on the backside is probably take out, if not the whole bed that sits in the back here, maybe at least part of it so I can get the tower mounts through. And then these come with extra long tower mounts to be able to stand in the back. I would access these from the top on the roof with the clips, and then this would probably be just poked right through the hood on the other one, which means I might either need to glue that closed or what have you. Basically 4 clips, pull the body, reveal the battery and everything else sitting underneath. And I really do like this chassis. I ran it a little bit more last night. It's actually very fast. It's got throttle control trim, steering trim, etc. The shocks are very nice. They are oil filled. Tires are foam filled, etc. And it seems to run really well. I do like it. It's a nice 116 chassis that I think should do pretty well underneath a fairly heavy body like this. This is, weight-wise probably, maybe a half to a third heavier than what the factory RGT crawler body is, and it just in general looks nicer because of the clear windows and all the other stuff that comes with it. But I think ultimately what I wouldn't mind trying to do is get that body mounted onto this chassis here. So what I've done up to this point was obviously removed this from the original chassis, and then this also has this particular bracket which originally mounted here, which you'll need to remove just these 2 screws to take that out. And then the headlights have just a tiny little clip right here. If you move that clip to the side, then you can extract those 2 front LEDs, which this just comes with the 2 LEDs which are constantly on whenever you turn the vehicle on, and it has no rear lights, so you're pretty much free and clear back there. So you undo the 2 screws here, 2 screws from the bracket, and the 2 screws from up front. Those 6 screws hold this whole body onto the Fayee chassis. And so once that's done, you're pretty much left with, like I said, a nice plastic hard body in traditional, I think it was almost factory color if I wouldn't mistake. I ended up painting the wheel wells just because I thought it would sort of break up the green a little bit. But you've got a really nice interior if you wanted to add a driver, anything along those lines. And plus you've got, like I said, you've got hard plastic windows all the way around, which is a really nice feature that maybe eventually, some of the other manufacturers might catch on to doing at some point in time. So, where am I at with this particular chassis? This didn't really require too much. What I've done was extended the bumpers all the way out to their outermost position, and then I've removed the tower posts, whatever you want to call these post mounts, from their spots here, just to see what it's going to take to be able to get, again, this seated down onto the top of it properly. Then I should be able to take my Dremel and cut away almost the entire bed, which is going to free up a bunch of room on the inside of this thing to be able to get this seated all the way down. I should be able to, with just minimal modification, be able to get this seated all the way in the back. What I am going to need to do is cut away this step. I'm hoping to be able to keep the mud flaps on here, and that once it seats itself all the way on to the rear of the chassis, I should be able to keep everything intact. I need about 1 inch worth of room, maybe a little bit more, and that's going to be able to provide enough depth to be able to get that seated on there properly. Once I have that done, I should be able to figure out exactly how much or how tall I'm going to need to mount, again, these posts onto the chassis here in order to be able to reach up to the roof, to be able to poke through the top, to be able to utilize the clips. If in fact none of that ends up working somehow, I have plenty of magnets that I believe I can glue to the inside here and figure out some way to be able to glue those to the inside of the body to be able to get that to sit down and lock down onto this. I really do like this chassis. I think it performs kind of actually a little bit beyond expectation, kind of compared to what I've heard some reviews saying about this. A lot of people weren't really happy with the acceleration rate and stuff like that. I figured out last night that the throttle trim is certainly a very welcomed option to be able to adjust on this to get it to take off nice and slowly and be able to have some control when climbing and descending as well. It has an incredible drag brake on it, without a doubt. As soon as you let off the accelerator, this thing just stops dead and it doesn't want to move at all. So with all of that said, where I am right now might require me to hop off camera, do some cutting and some modification on this body. I've had this now for months. I think I bought this sometime over the summer this last year, and I ran it for a very short period of time. I filmed just a couple of videos out in the backyard with it, and I liked how it looked, but this was before I owned an MN99S and I began modifying the MN99S. At which point this has basically just sat completely unused for probably at least 3 months now. And I really like this body a lot because it is a hard plastic body all the way around. It's just got some really nice features that I think, I want to just see this thing kind of put to good use in the long run without just sitting and collecting dust. I'll even pull the spare tire off the back, and I will go ahead and use the spare tire mount on this. And so if you look at this from the side, you can kind of see that, it's got that potential to look, I think, really, really nice when it's all said and done. Again, I don't need a whole lot of room for clearance in the back just to get things to swing past this bumper and be able to, I think, make it look pretty good. Okay, I haven't done any cutting or modding or anything yet, but I did want to just point out that one cool thing about this Fayee body is that A, it can be turned into a D110 truck. Okay, this has simply 4 screws, one on each side in this particular location and one on the back right here. So here, 2 in the back, another on that side. Once those are freed, you can actually remove the top, and it exposes, of course, the bed. If this doesn't work out, I can actually restore this back to the Fayee chassis because I'll leave these 2 body mount posts intact. So probably what I'll end up doing is going from, I'm going to take a marker here and show you, I'll probably take this cut here around to here and just right across this location here, which should give me plenty of room all the way around to be able to get that onto the RGT chassis. Alright, back in a few. Okay, my cutting wheel, unfortunately, on my Dremel is all stripped out, so what I had to resort to doing was from the inside, take a drill bit and basically perforate all along my score here, right? Now I'm going to take my cutters and I'm just going to go ahead and cut what little bits are left and then basically break this piece away. And then I'll go back through and I'll clean that up with a sanding. Okay, I've got the hole opened up here now. That should allow me to go ahead and seat this onto the top of this and see exactly what's left that I need to remove. I do need to unfortunately get rid of this little step here, which kind of makes me sad. It is kind of a nice little detail, but you know what? Sacrifices are sacrifices. So away that goes. And now that will let me push this all the way down that needs to go. And folks, there you have it. Okay. I might still want to take just a little bit more away. We'll see here in just a minute just what that's going to require. To get this properly centered over everything, and how much I'd have to remove. But I think realistically that's probably about as low as I'll need to go. That's what that's going to look like from the side, from both sides here. Now the next thing that I need to do is go ahead and mount these posts right here. And I believe those are going to work out perfectly with coming in contact with the roof for me to be able to poke the holes in the roof and be able to get this body mounted on here. So that's step one of this modification, just to get that all taken care of. And another thing I'd like to point out too is I was able to keep the mud flaps on here, keep them intact. I think for the time being I'm happy that I was able to keep those on here. I might do away with this rear bumper and find another option. Perhaps just take it off entirely, remount it some other way, or just do away with it in general. That probably took me about 2 minutes or so to go ahead and drill all the holes in there, and then cutting away that piece of plastic was very quick, and then a little bit of grinding, and that is now opened up. Once the roof is sitting on here like so, and once the posts are mounted, you're really not going to be able to see much of what's going on inside of there. I'm going to keep a lot of the scale detail intact, and that's going to look, I think, just fine in general. It's probably going to have a little bit of lift in the back, but I'm okay with that. And if I do need to take away, I think what's probably happening there is that it's just hitting ever so slightly, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of these corner pieces, which is kind of hard to point out, but right about where my middle finger is at, that might be just a little bit more plastic that needs to be taken away. Alright, I am back after a short break. Took time to eat some lunch, screw the roof back on. My thought might be to try and accomplish this with magnets. The only thing that scares me about doing that is that I have seen them break free pretty easily in a couple of videos, and as well my experience with trying to use them in certain crawling situations. They tend to pop free, and with the amount of lighting that this unit has in it, the RGT chassis anyway, I wouldn't want to take the chance of having a bunch of connections made that if the body breaks free, I wouldn't want those connections to be stressed out. So I kind of, as much as I'm not a big fan of poking holes in the body and having clips show through, they are what they are, and they are very sturdy and very effective. So next here, I'm going to pop this back off because it's not entirely attached yet. It's just sitting there. And then I'm going to raise the front two up one hole, I think. If there were two holes, I'd probably want to move it up two, but I'm not sure that I've got that kind of luxury here. I think it is only just one. If it is two holes, I will move it a full two. Looks like I've got one hole up I can go. Hopefully that's enough to be able to poke through where I need it to on the body. Another thing I'm also considering right now is to turn this way towards the inside to face each other, which might put it a little too close together, but I'll know more about that in just a second. And of course the servo's in the way, why wouldn't it be? So, let's drop that servo out for a second. Alright. Big deal. That way I can get to that front mount. Like so. Just need to get that screwdriver in there. Alright. That's what it would look like if the two were very close together, which I'm not opposed to doing at all. I think that would be maybe a little bit better than having them too far apart, because I think I noticed when they were far apart that they were kind of sticking out towards the sides of the mold of the roof here, and so with them closer together like that might be a little easier to manage. So I'm going to leave those, I think, in that position. See what takes place. Pop this screw back in. This was a modification that I had thought about doing, I think, when I was looking at these online. I watched a couple of YouTube videos that showed that you can swap the MN99 body over to this chassis fairly easily. If I had not at this point done so much modification to that truck already, that would probably be something that I would consider doing, but that is sitting on an MN99S chassis with MN99S, I think V2 or V3 electronics all installed, and with all of the parts in time. It's got WPL upgrade parts through and through. I don't really think there's much original stuff on that thing left at all, with the exception of like the body and the tires and wheels. I just couldn't really justify making such a major change to that one more time, especially since I've had some problems with a couple of different things about how it's ran. Nothing major, just more annoyance things than anything. And I didn't want to go through kind of recreating more bugs than features, benefits if you will, about it. So I decided that this might be the better thing to do by going with this. And I think in the long run, just based upon what I'm seeing so far, I'm going to be pretty happy with my decision to kind of stay the course here. So, and I probably wouldn't have done this if RGT didn't include these two tall mounts. I did not know that this kit was going to come with these at all. That was a completely unexpected bonus to find in the package when I opened it up, to see those things in there. And I think the second I saw that they were in there, the gears began turning, and I said, I think it might be completely possible, simply because of how this would sit, once they're installed. And so I might need to drop these down maybe one more hole. But I'm doing this right now to see where they're going to sit. These are really neat little crawlers. I think eventually I might upgrade the electronics to get a little bit better startup control out of them. I have no complaints right now as it is. I just have seen some modification videos online on YouTube of some guys that have done some of that stuff already, and I do like how those mods actually affected the performance, and so that may be something that I might try at some point in time. It's certainly not a make or break deal. For me with this at all. I'm very pleased with how it performs right now as it sits stock. So, let's see. Sorry about that incredibly loud, ugly noise. Oh yes. Okay, so this is a great sign in that I will need to drop those down probably about 3 or 4 holes in order to get the rear to make perfect contact. Once I have that set, I should have all kinds of room although I may need a little bit more up front. In which case, what I'm going to do then at that point would be to probably grind a little bit away from the front part of the grill here to give that just a little bit more space to drop down onto the chassis so it sits just a hair lower. Be able to get those pins. All I need is about a 1/4 of an inch of space, maybe even not quite that much. In the back I'll need to lower this probably about 3/8 of an inch or so. So I'm going to try dropping those down about 3 holes in the back. And then you make your official full final assessment. Oh, that's perfect. Might need to actually raise them back up just the tiniest little bit. And then I think that is going to be golden. Okay. So what I'm going to do while I have this flipped over right now is I'm going to take a marker, if I can find it, here. And I just want to mark where I need to grind away the tiniest little bit of body in the front here. You can see that on camera. So where those bumper bars hit, I'm just going to take my Dremel and just kind of grind away the slightest little bit. It won't need to be very much at all. It'll be a modification that once it's complete you probably won't hardly ever see it because it'll be behind the actual facade of the bumper here. This I'm going to raise up think about, if I had to guess, maybe one or two holes, and then I should be in good shape. It's also the kind of thing that once I have the holes, once I have everything set, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take white paint. I'm going to paint dab a little white paint on the top. I'm going to set that down on the top here. That's going to mark where my holes need to be drilled. I'll do the same thing in the front, and then that's going to be my big indication of where everything is going to work out just fine. I think when all is said and done, I'll probably want the body to rest on the bumpers as much as possible, just simply for stability purposes. That way it won't rattle around too much, and then it'll just feel, I think, a little bit more solid in general. Okay, as you can see, I just took my little grinding sanding wheel and removed, I think, what is going to be just enough to be able to get that to seat properly. I might still need to take just a hair more and also even them up to make sure that they're centered properly over the whole bumper. But basically that's that. And then also, while I had the grinder fired up, where that step was located in the back, I made sure to take off any extra plastic that's there. And so now what I'm going to do is put some white paint on the tips of these, and a little drop in each location, and then I'm going to set the body on top of the chassis, and that should mark where my locations need to be. Alright, not exactly sure how well this will show up on camera, but I've got white paint on top of those locations right there. I'm going to drop the body first. I'll lower that into position here. Make sure that I've got good contact with where that wants to sit. Should be right where it needs to be. Wiggle it around a little bit just to make sure that I get some paint on those spots. Now if I pull that away, you'll see I've got two white dots and two white dots. And then you just take that paint and wipe it back off from the posts. That way it's not going to turn the top of your posts white. And then when I go to drill the holes in the roof and everything, I'll pull the roof back off of it, and I probably won't need to remove the hood at all. But because I'm fairly confident the hood is really centered. But with the roof, I will want to be extra double sure that basically these are, you know, as lined up and as centered as can possibly be, especially on the roof. You know, because when you set that down, you'll probably need to kind of finagle and moving it around a little bit in order to be able to get that exact right position when you're going to seat the thing on there, to be able to put the body clips in. Alright, I thought I'd turn the camera on for the moment of truth here. I've got the holes drilled in the body. I'll let you see either my failure or success or partial failure or whatever. But this is landing the body onto the chassis for the first time since drilling the holes, and I'll be darned, I actually nailed it. Good deal. One thing I have noticed, of course, is that the pins, oh, they do fit. Okay, I was a little concerned that I was going to have some trouble getting these to slide through because they were so close. Folks, you're witnessing it on film here. Okay. One thing I do want to point out is that the holes ended up just maybe like a millimeter or two to the right side on the front. Not the end of the world in any way, shape, or form. I can certainly live with that for all it's worth. I am just more pleased that ultimately this modification has worked as well as what it did by putting this body onto this chassis and that I'm able to get these pins on here, and boom, there it is. Folks, it's the Fayee FY003, 003, whatever this thing is, the A version body onto an RGT 116 chassis, and that it actually fits and looks good, sits very level. Now what I'll need to do is figure out how to swap over the light kit, but I am probably going to take this for a spin just for a quick minute to see how it drives, and then at which point I will show you what I'm going to end up doing with all of the lights.